Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Cadenhead's warehouse. As part of our online tasting week, we've brought the warehouse to you, as unfortunately we can't see, many of you can't travel to Campbeltown to take part in our warehouse tasting. So the best option was to bring this to you virtually. And you've got the two most awkward people in Campbeltown probably hosting this tasting. Two most awkward in front of a camera. Yeah. So we'll give this a good bash and see how we get on. So what we're going to do tonight is we're going to taste 6 nice drams. A few that will need a little bit of explaining, but that's Cadenhead and we're up for the challenge.
Yep.
And we're going to have some fun, a little bit of interaction. We'll welcome any comments and questions on Facebook and YouTube. We're keeping an eye on them at the side here, so please feel free to join in throughout the tasting. And yeah, I think we'll pass over to Cameron, and he'll get us started on the first dram.
Excellent, thanks Jenna. As Jenna said, we are monitoring any questions that you've got for during tonight, so please feel free to give us anything. But be kind, don't give us in too much abuse this time. And as Jenna said, some of the drams tonight will need a little explanation, which we will get into, which we'll start off with the first one, which is actually a 15-year-old Irish spirit drink. But on your tasting pack, it will say 10-year-old Irish.
How do you explain that one, Cameron?
I'm trying to do the best I can without getting in any trouble here. Basically, what we initially wanted to call it, we can't. We have to comply with certain regulations with customs and with HMRC when we're actually doing the labelling. And the way that we had to do it is we could have to call it an Irish spirit drink. Now, this is fine, because it now meant we could actually give it its entire age, as the spirit, whatever spirit it was distilled in 2006 and obviously bottled this year too. So it's 15 years old, bottled at 48.8%, and we actually had it maturing in an ex-Caroni rum cask since 2018. So roughly about 3 years in the ex-rum cask, which I think's done it a lot of good work. The Irish spirit itself, normally quite light, quite fruity, kind of little tropical fruits as well. And the ex-Caroni rum cask has just enhanced that quite a bit. You know, with space on the nose, you know, it's, if anybody has ever tried Caroni rum, it is Trinidad Distillery. It's closed down now. It's one of these ones where people go about crazy for. Whether that's justified or whether it's just because it's closed, but some of the rums you get are excellent, of course, but because it's closed down, a lot of people go about crazy for it. And it has got quite a distinct flavour. Even in the nose, it's got almost that diesel-y, petrol, kind of aniseed type kind of fragrance to it, which sounds pretty horrible.
Yeah, it's left a nice dirty feel.
Yeah, it's got a nice dirty feel to it, a smell to it. But when you say petrol and kind of diesel, it maybe not the most attractive sounding, but it's quite a nice kind of nose to it. It's got a little kind of tropical fruit to it.
Some of my favourite smells. Petrol and diesel.
We'll not go there. That's for a different live chat, I think. And the same with the flavour, it comes right through. And even at 48.8%, which quite low for a 15-year-old, you know, whatever spirit it is, of course. It is quite low for a 15-year-old. That's a spirit type, but it's got a lot of kind of body to it.
It's got a nice, long-lasting finish there.
It does,
and I think the rum comes back on that as well. It's really got a nice, long-lasting flavour.
Yeah, definitely, and I think 3 years in the rum cask as well. You know, it's given it enough time. So it's sometimes you can just have it maybe. Sometimes a shorter maturation will work. Sometimes with rum it might need a little bit more because it just depends on how strong the rum was previously. The Caroni that went into here obviously was a bit stronger.
Mm-hmm.
It was one we bottled in 2018. So we actually bottled the rum previously, and it was a pretty good one as well, if I can remember right. It wasn't maybe the heavy style, but it still kind of helped enhance the Irish spirit that we had here. So just to kind of let you know that what we've done here is just basically
Follow the rules.
Follow the rules for once. Sometimes we don't. Not deliberately, of course. We always do eventually.
We like to keep up to date as possible, but sometimes the odd thing will slip through. That we'll correct it as soon as we find that.
Yeah. Pretty much for anybody that doesn't know, the certain spirit that was made in Ireland, once it leaves Ireland, it can no longer be maturing further in oak, whatever destination it takes outside of Ireland. So if you put out of that, you can no longer call it whatever the spirit it was before. Hint.
Lesson learned.
Well, yeah, but this is from a few years ago as well, so we just had to make sure we complied with the correct procedure. But now we can age it further. You know, we can actually state that it was matured in a rum cask as well. And we've put it in a nice green bottle as well. There we go. Just to emphasise even further what country it came from. Now, as Jenna said, unfortunately, due to COVID, of course, we can't have everyone coming to the festival this year, which is obviously not great. It's not ideal. We want everybody to come to Campbeltown. And anybody who's been in the past might have been at our warehouse tastings that we host. Anybody that has been might notice that this is actually a different warehouse than normal. We're actually in warehouse 3 at Springbank Distillery, which is actually a lot cleaner than the one we're normally in. We're normally at warehouse number 9, and they're just doing a little bit of maintenance work, so we had to do just change the warehouse for this tasting, and it's actually it's quite nice in here.
Nice, bright, airy.
Yeah, it's a bit dark and damp still, but not quite like the other warehouse we have where it is filthy.
Not as much mould on the walls.
Yeah, it's pretty disgusting, and it's one you've got to watch, as you might your shoes might get damaged. But hopefully, once things start to open up, we hope that you guys can come and visit the warehouse tastings, where you'll be able to experience whiskey in a dunnage warehouse like this, where, let's be honest, it does give you a different sort of sense, like when you're drinking whiskey or other spirits in a dunnage warehouse. It gives you that kind of
the feel, the smells and the atmosphere. Even though it's dirty and it's cold, but it's
some of my favourite places.
But yeah, Nathan's shaking his head there. Yeah. But yeah, it gives you a better feel, and sometimes the atmosphere can change what you're tasting as well, so you can enjoy it a little bit more. But it's part of the experience, warming the whiskey up in your hands and hearing all the different stories that we can come away with during a Cadenhead warehouse tasting as well. I've certainly been missing the tastings and missing seeing everyone as well. So
definitely,
it's not that it's very enjoyable doing these tastings virtually, and we know everyone's enjoying them at home, but it's not quite the same experience. It's a lot tougher, I'd say.
It is. I think, as you pointed out earlier, like looking at a camera, it's awkward, rather than actually seeing you guys face to face. But we're trying our best here. Yeah. We've got a few comments in so far. Martin Olsen, absolutely love the Irish, excellent. We've got Vic Kopinski with the first height joke of the day, so I lost the sweep. I thought better of you, Vic.
What was the height joke?
It was the usual. It was, they are playing with perspective. Cameron is standing closer to the camera and Jenna is standing back.
If I was allowed to put my arm around him, I would.
No, you wouldn't. So, yeah, we've got some here. Some Bob Miller. It's got linseed, polished in the nose, fruity molasses, and licorice palate. Yeah, it's got that. You get that, especially with some of these kind of Corona rums. We've noticed in the past that that really does. You get that kind of very licorice type flavour from it too.
With it being a heavier style rum as well, and that kind of dirty diesel I don't think it's totally overpowered it, and you still get a lot of the nice fruitiness that you get from an Irish spirit as well.
Catriona, who works with us at the distillery, actually says, the warehouse isn't filthy, it's atmospheric. You're right there, Catriona. We should get it right next time. Excellent. I think that seems to be a decent response for the first one, and it's a really good one to start the night with, I think. Not just because it's, again, I always say this in a tasting that kind of sometimes the first dram, you're not too sure which to pick.
Mm-hmm.
Because people always think it's going to be the lightest one. Obviously, a heavier, maybe a smoky one isn't the one you're going to pick, but
you need to remember it by the time you get to
that's the thing. And sometimes maybe the time you get to your fourth or fifth dram, is your palate gone? Do you have the same kind of taste? So it's very difficult, but I think that's a cracking whiskey.
Well, it's not very often that you'll put a sort of cask matured first as well, so it's quite interesting. We've got a lot of interest in varied drams without this tasting. So yeah, it's different from your typical starting with a nice light fruity one, so that your palate's ready for a nice lineup. You don't want to start on something heavily smoked, otherwise you'll not taste anything throughout the rest of the tasting. So yeah, I think that goes to show what we've got due for the remainder of the tasting, and yeah, cracking one to start off with.
Yep, Ian Sutherland is asked, is it a coolie? It's quite warm tonight, actually, Ian. So
it's been a lovely day in Campbeltown today, nice and sunny, and yeah.
Sorry, that's awful. We'll move on to number 2, I think.
I think that might be a good move.
I think that's the cue.
So number 2 will take a little bit of not as much explaining, but a little bit. We've got on the tasting pack information that this is an Inchmurrin, which is completely correct, so don't worry about that. It's 24 years old at 48.7%. This is a bourbon hogshead, and it's one of multiple expressions produced from Loch Lomond Distillery. So that's where I'd like to point out that if you were to purchase a bottle of this one at the end, it will say distilled at Loch Lomond Distillery, so it won't say Inchmurrin on the label, but that's because Loch Lomond Distillery will produces a number of different brands and of different styles. So this one especially, it's got a nice lovely toffee on the nose, with a bit of fruits and very buttery. And it's very smooth for 24 years old, nice and gentle. Again, 48.7%. It's slightly lower in strength, but it's not really low. You know,
it's really fruit. That tropical fruits, the kind of sort of sweet caramel notes too.
A bit of a grassy flavour at the end there as well. It's lingering on, but yeah, that's a solid, full-bodied dram as well. I think it's got a bit of everything.
It's got a chewiness to it.
Yeah.
I think as well with this one, you might agree that it's not no disrespect to the distillery or anything like that, but maybe when somebody's looking at a tasting pack or they're looking at a dram and somebody says it's an Inchmurrin, they might not think.
Well, they'll not jump up for it.
That's maybe correct there, but it just kind of shows that you can't judge distilleries or that there are some quality whiskies you can get from anywhere. And we've actually had some really good ones in the past too.
Yeah, definitely. And I think that's, I was even saying to Cameron this afternoon, it's what I love about Cadenhead is we're here to pick casks that have this flavour and a bit of something about it. And obviously Loch Lomond will produce this and release their own versions, but we get a chance to see what a single cask is like. And it gives you a wee bit more in-depth of what they're producing, rather than large vatins made up to a certain recipe that they want to have consistent throughout. So yeah, you can get some really interesting releases from Cadenhead due to that, and it is all about looking for the flavour and nice smells and a finish as well. So every dram is different. You're not going to, if we release a single cask, you're not going to get the exact same flavours from a sister cask, but yeah, they'll be very similar. But yeah, this is an all-round very nice. I love the nose on it. It's very buttery,
cracking.
sort of toffee,
there are a lot of people saying it's sweet, sugary, sweet caramel too, Brazil nuts. We've also got a couple of people asking for what the price is and how they can buy it. Somebody's also replied with the price and with the email, but maybe would you like to explain a bit more of how this will work at the end as well?
So like any Cadenhead's warehouse tasting, if you come to Campbeltown and take part in a warehouse tasting, you get the opportunity to purchase anything you sample at the end of the tasting. Normally this is exclusive. You wouldn't be able to phone up and purchase anything from the warehouse tastings, but so you have to come here and take part. So this is a really good opportunity for everyone that's purchased a warehouse tasting pack for this evening. You get the chance to purchase the bottles at the end. It is limited to the number of tasting packs you purchased. So if you purchased one tasting pack, you'll be able to buy one of each of the 6 bottles that we sampled tonight. If you bought 2, you'll have a limit of 2 of each of the bottles that we've got tonight as well. We'll continue. If you've got any questions, please ask tonight. I'll save emailing afterwards. But yeah, the bottles will go on sale at 9:30, so after the tasting.
I think Nathan's put up one. If you did purchase a tasting pack but didn't get an email today, contact hello@cadenhead.shop.
Thanks, Nathan.
Sorry, Jenna.
Yeah, no, that's the correct thing to do as well. So if you do have any questions about the purchases this evening, send an email to hello@cadenhead.shop. You'll not get a response just now. You will get a response as quickly as possible. But yeah, there is an auto reply with some answers to questions you might have as well. But yeah, we're here right now. We're live, so ask away, and we'll get them to you. The link, you should have received a link to the page. This is private to the people that purchased the tasting packs only. And if you share it with your friends, go ahead, because they'll not be able to buy them unless they've got an email registered with their purchase of the pack. So there's no point in sharing the email unless you follow the instructions in the email that we gave for friends as well. But yeah, I've probably just confused you completely there.
And after the taste as well, because unlike the Springbank guys or sister company, we do all the work for everything. So we'll be working afterwards too. Not just those guys who go to the pub. Okay, Nathan and Jenna will be. Yeah, I'll be building morale. That's it.
You should manage to see, if you've clicked on the link, you should see the sort of product information page. I think there's only one product visible at the moment. As the night progresses, this will change, but you won't be able to purchase anything until 9:30. It's probably worth noting as well, we can't combine orders, so please take your time when you're doing your purchases and make sure you get what you would like into your basket. There's absolutely no hurry. And you're watching it live. It's not going to go on anywhere because you need one of us to press the button. So
we've been asked as well, are these batches or single casks? Each one tonight are single casks, so they are obviously limited. As we said, it is for each pack that was purchased, there is a chance to buy one bottle of each. As Jenna just explained, that I won't confuse things any further. I left that one with you. There's no way I can't explain anything. Again, seemed to be good response to this one. Bram's getting mackerel though, which I'm not quite getting myself, but it's all right though. I think a few other people have said it.
Well, everyone's different and everyone's got different tasting notes, so it's good to. It's lovely to hear different people's opinions as well. So when we're doing tasting notes for our releases, we do it just now over video calls, and it's an input from everyone because at the end of the day, everyone's different. And
excellent. Yeah. We'll move on to the next one because this one's going to take a bit of explaining. So we're going to move on to dram number 3, folks, which is the Cadenhead's Anomaly blend. This is one which, please bear with me, as it will take a little bit of explaining. So, to begin with, we don't know exactly what single malts are in here. It is made up of single malt. The youngest distilled malt was distilled in 1987 They were then bottled. The youngest bottling was 10 years old. So going by that, it must have been around about 1997. The youngest one would have been bottled. I think the stock, this is the bit where the story gets hazy and we're onto a bit of a ramble, shall we say. Now, we believe that the stock was maybe sent to the US and some reason some of the stock was returned. And in 2004, the stock was emptied into casks, into hogshead. And then it was left to mature on until now, really. So, all in all, there's probably about 26 years of the minimum age within the cask. We have no idea what's in it. And we just know it's single malt. We didn't put any age statement on it because there is a bit of a haziness there that it's been bottled, been put in cask.
It's better to be truthful as well. So
yeah.
we can tell you the story about this blended malt, which is far easier than releasing it and letting you guess.
And I think probably one of the main talking points of it is it's almost green. It's kind of like a brown green colour.
The colour in the bottle is a lot darker than you would expect compared to the sample size that you get. I've seen a few people discussing this on social media, but yeah, I don't know. But
I think it's an absolutely tremendous dram. There's always a bit of talk of what old style whiskies to new style whiskies are, and I think that's a very tough thing to compare. Some people think that the old style distillations were better than the new style. The older whiskies were better than newer ones, or whatnot. The way that distilled, or the way that they matured. This one does taste like an older whiskey. It has got that kind of feel. I'm not too sure because whatever has made it green has given it some kind of flare. I think it's an oil slick that's went in here. Maybe some of that diesel that we were talking about earlier might have got in. But it really has got a gorgeous kind of. Again, it's got really kind of, I say tropical fruits with the last one, but it has got that sort of similar sort of.
It's just got a burst of flavour that all of a sudden appears. I think the palate and the finish is a lot bigger than you would expect from the nose, and it's got a lot to it. And yeah, as you say, that sort of traditional style, and a burst, it totally fills your mouth.
Now, with it too, we don't know. There wasn't a list. When this was actually done, nobody really had the same want for the provenance of whiskies at this point. It was a case of, we've got single malts here, we're just dumping it. They didn't care if it was Springbank, Long Row, Glen Scotia, Ardbeg that went into it. I'm not saying that's what went into it. I'm taking a guess it's not. But we've had similar ones in the past, and we did have lists. And I remember seeing some of the lists of ones, and some of them had. Now, I'm not saying this is what's in here, so don't quote me on this, but they had like Rosebanks, Banffs, they did have Springbanks and things in it, and also the likes of Balmerics, Glenfarclas, etc. But we don't know what's in here. It might be none of those. There might be some of that in here. We don't. Again, that's not me trying to suggest that there is any of that in here.
But that goes to show the varied range of what used to happen in the past, that no records were kept, so madness like throwing remnants of these.
Yeah, I mean, like the likes of, I think it was quite a common thing sometimes with the kind of remnants of certain whiskies that we had would maybe go in toward blends. And a lot of, when I mentioned the ones earlier, the likes of the ones where we've got lists of blends that we've had in the past, and they did contain Rosebanks, Little Mills, etc. There wasn't the same want for those distilleries in those days. That's why they went into these blends as well. Mm-hmm. So it sounds kind of crazy at the time, but probably if it was nowadays, they wouldn't go into those blends. It would be, we've got some spare cask bottles of Rosebank. Yeah, I think
we'll be keeping them in the office.
No, we'd be letting the public try them. But it is something a bit different. And as Jenna says, how do you bottle this? It's difficult. Because it's got a story to it as well. And also, if you put this on a shelf without telling the story, you might put more people off with that colour. But as we know, with probably most of the ones trying here, we don't judge by colour, we don't judge by the distillery. we will make sure that it's the flavour that counts. And I think this has got good flavour. Although probably should have got it tasted first in case this green colour makes everybody sick. I don't know.
We've tried it, it won't.
It's fine, honestly. But
yeah, it goes back to the good old thing that we're here, we're looking for casks in the warehouse, we're sampling all the time, and this one stood out as, there's nothing wrong with it at all. It's got a tint of green to it. Is there anything wrong with that? No, I wouldn't say so. It tastes completely fine, and well, it tastes better than fine, I would say. It's another cracking one. So it goes into the portfolio of these interesting and varied drams. Yeah,
we've got a lot of. Something that the green colour reminds me of absinthe. Hope the taste doesn't. It's a kind of black green. Love the complexity. Fruity as Tullibardine, bit dry and ashy at the end. Very like the 30-year-old Little Milton and earlier tasting.
Very good, yeah.
Ruth says, a drunken night out ending in the warehouse. No, we've got to work afterward, Ruth. Well, somebody's got to. Yeah, copper in the cask, somebody's saying.
That's very, very possible. There was the old, I wasn't around when it was released, but there was a Springbank green, and it had a tint of green. So I don't think it's uncommon.
It is
completely uncommon or unknown to have a slight tint.
We thought as well, because of the actual story behind it as well, just to kind of comment on it, the fact of its colour is one of a million things that's strange about it, that it was a better story to tell. And we actually nearly called the spirit drink at the start the green and white spirit drink. Then we thought we might alienate half of Scotland with that one, so we decided against that one. But sorry,
I was just going to say, it just goes to show the sort of thought and ideas that goes through the office in Cadenhead, and oh yeah, we'll do this, and then we really think about it. When Nathan gets excited, you've got to wonder why.
Yeah.
And yeah, there's a story to everything. But yeah, we knew tonight everyone would get to taste this, and you get the opportunity to buy it at the end. So brilliant opportunity to be able to give you a story about what goes on inside the world of Cadenhead, looking for casks and what we come across as well. Thankfully, this was a pretty good find, I'd say.
But Jens saying, due to Brexit, you should declare it as brake fluid when sending it to Germany. It might not be the worst idea. It's probably easier than trying to get whiskey across just now. Richard Brass, if Ronan was still there, he'd defo have insisted on the name. Yep, his brother really wanted it too. But and also another thing with this too, it goes to show how good blends can be again. And I know it's something we talk on a lot, that there sometimes can be a bit of snobbery towards blends. It could be sometimes, it's only a single malt or nothing. It's got to be a certain distillery. It's got to be over 18 years old. But that's a cracking. If that had a name on it, or if it was 30, a 20-year-old ex-distillery, it's a great track.
Or the age statement alone would probably be jumping at the chance to get it. But for the ages that we assume's in there as well, I think it's kept a lot of life about it. So it's definitely one that had to be bottled and sent out for you all to try.
Yeah, and it's one we've been looking to bottle for a while now, but we just didn't know what to do with it. We actually planned to maybe use it in warehouse tastings when we could get warehouse tastings actually here, but we don't know when that's going to happen, so we thought we would do it during the online tasting as well. But a couple here, some say love it, that's very good, Glenys. Dog says Johnny Blue, I'm not sure if that's a response to me or somebody else. Yeah, it seems to be going down quite well, that one. But we do our own blending as well, but this one, we can't take any credit for. This was literally probably done as a cast dump So sometimes we could have easily said, yeah, we carefully selected all these whiskies. You know, we knew we wanted it the right flavour, the right texture, the right colour of green. But
let's be honest,
we didn't. It was dumped into a cask.
We don't even know who to thank for it.
No. We could probably find out someday, but
Yeah.
it's pot luck. So it just goes to show you that sometimes you can get lucky with it as well.
Yeah.
Excellent. We're going on to number 4.
Yeah, before we go on to dram number 4, I have dropped half of the lid, so I'm just going to take it out stylishly.
She's a classy lady, Jenna.
Into the dram, so we don't need to taste that at the same time. So next off, we are going to Tomatin Distillery. We've got a 10 years old at 53.7%. And this was originally filled into a bourbon hogshead, a Highland whiskey re-racked into a PX sherry cask in 2019. Now, we're both a little bit excited about this one. We think you are going to like that. This PX sherry has obviously left some notable colour on the whiskey, and Tomatin being an all-round well-known distillery anyway, it's always a sort of consistent and a go-to whiskey you can rely on, I'd say. So we've played around with this cask. We've put it into PX sherry cask in 2019, and it's left a lovely influence on it so far.
Yeah, it's got the kind of dark fruits to start with. That kind of deep kind of PX kind of notes you're going to get. A
bit of dark chocolate. It's got a bit of freshness to it on the nose as well. It's a really nice oiliness and sort of mouth coating over the top of the tongue.
That kind of almost tangerine sort of background to it as well. It's one I think that the kind of sherry the sherry lovers would like to, but it's not. The colour probably is a bit more deceiving. It's got a nicer flavour than just totally dominating, but it has still got the strong kind of PX.
Yeah, it's probably one that you don't really judge a book by its cover. Now, I remember when I first started with Cadenheads and tasting whiskies, I was doing Cadenhead's warehouse tastings. We had an McIntosh in the warehouse at the time.
Chateau
Lafite, and it was like dark. It was literally black in colour. And it wasn't, completely honest, wasn't my favourite at the time, and kind of put me off these dark style whiskies. It just wasn't my preference really. Everyone's got different flavours, and that had a wee bit of burnt rubber to it, which kind of just wasn't for me. And then when I moved on, started tasting more, I think your palate adjusts and you're open up to more and more things. The more and more you get to taste as well. And Cadenhead is a brilliant place to do that, so I've been very lucky. But yeah, wasn't a massive fan of sherry whiskies at the beginning, but they're becoming more and more at the top of the list as we've been playing around with different casks, doing sherry tastings and learning a little bit more about sherry and different wood types, all in all. But yeah, it works well with whiskey, so that's why a lot of us all do it.
It's with that too. Obviously, part of the reason why we will do a lot of this re-racking is that, for those who don't know, re-racking is when we will switch one cask of spirit into another cask, primarily because we believe it needs a bit of a boost. There might be something that's just not right with it. And because we are literally dealing with single casks or small vattings, small vattings of maybe up to maybe 10 casks or whatnot, we really need each cask to be pretty good. There's not really any hiding place, and it's not us that are distilling it. So, if we get something that's maybe 10 years old or maybe 8 years old, and we finally get to try it and it's not great, we need to do something with it pretty quickly. This one possibly was maybe when we decide to put something into PX, we generally feel that it's maybe a bit thin. Maybe needs to get a bit more of a body, something just to kind of boost up a bit more. And with PX2, you don't, it's not an absolute, but a lot of the cases you don't need to have it in for 10 years. Yeah. A couple of years can actually give it a boost. You've also got to watch it doesn't completely over-dominate as well. So we've had that's only 2019 as well.
It's not a rushed finish as such. We're in no hurry. But for those of you that don't know as well, when we're buying casks, and a lot of them are dotted all over Scotland still, in different warehouses, and we're buying large volumes. So when they come, we're trying to get as many as we can to the distillery where they can be tasted and looked after. So likes of this one, we've tasted fairly early, and we've decided that it needs something just to liven it up a wee bit more flavour, as Cameron has said, and we'll look at re-racking it into different casks. So whether it's sherry or it's rum, or different types of wine casks, and it just gives it that wee bit more of an interesting flavour. But after we do that, we've got to keep an eye on the length of time that it's in that cask and what's happening during the process as well. So likes of a PX sherry cask will know to check on that fairly regularly so that it doesn't completely overpower the spirit and you lose the sort of identity of the distillery as well, which you don't really want to do, because at the end of the day we are releasing a whiskey. So this one's pretty well balanced, and I don't know, we've not released any that's been completely overpowered. But this one's a pretty well balanced. It's not got any of the sulphury notes.
No. Sometimes you can get that with certain sherry casks, and we've got ones ourselves. It's very difficult to try
and some people look for that as well. So it's finding a taste for everyone.
Or try and find a way to hide it as well, or try and improve it.
But
we've got a question here asking, do we sometimes put the brakes on something if it's getting too much cask influence? And it is something we have done in the past too. Sometimes if it is starting to get a bit too much, but it's still not quite right, you've then got to decide, do we keep this going? But then you could maybe completely ruin it, but you could maybe get it to a point of no return. So we actually have done that recently. We did it with an older Ardbeg recently, but we did put it in a sherry cask because it needed a boost. But now we're kind of worried that maybe it was getting too much. But we think we can catch it back to a point of, where it'll actually be good again. Obviously it's going to take a bit of time, but we feel putting it back into bourbon again.
There has been a few, even in the Cadenhead warehouse as well, we had the Coquerin, which was a sort of reverse maturation that we had in Springbank, or Mitchell Springyle had it in the sherry cask for 10 years, and then it re-backed it into a bourbon cask because it had overpowered it slightly, and just doing that for a further, I think it was 3 or 4 years, it kind of brought back the flavours and the sort of fruitiness that you normally get lightly smoked from Coquerin, so it kind of brought the cask back to life.
It made it kind of taste a bit more like Coquerin. It brought back some of the DNA of the actual distillery, what you probably know from it. Whereas sometimes you can just go too much, and don't get me wrong, when it was porty, it actually tasted really lovely.
Oh yeah,
but it probably wasn't. You wouldn't class it as if somebody said to you, "Give me a good Coquerin."
Yeah,
you would. That's not something to highlight what Coquerin would have been, I think. Although it tasted pretty good, but the bourbon really just did take it back, and it's something. It's probably from that we've kind of.
It's trial and error with a lot of these things. Is you've got to try it to find out what happens, and it's experimenting with the different flavours. Even Finlay Ross has done a lot with sherry, and he'll have the Springbank sherry cask tasting. Is that Friday night? Where he's been over to Spain and learned a lot about it, and he's purchasing the cask from the distillery as well. So he's kind of passing this knowledge on to us as well, so that we, when you're deciding to re-rack casks, you've got an idea of what flavours will be introduced to the whiskies and things like that as well. So it is an important bit, but you never really know how it's going to turn out.
No, definitely. As Jenna said, I mean, I've actually spoken to other people, other independent bottlers, where they've re-racked and then re-racked again just to try and get it right. It is trial and error. And one of the things we do is we do not sell casks on. So if something's not that great, we'll try and find something for it. Whether does it work in a blend? Can it work in a larger vatting of maybe other similar casks to make it good. But if it doesn't, we've got to try and find a way to maybe make it better. And if not, it's just going to evaporate in the warehouse.
There is the option of blending it as well, but as Cameron said near in the beginning, each of the casks within a blend or within a vatting that we put in needs to kind of stand out and make the sort of recipe work. Otherwise, you will notice the imperfections from that one there because they're so little.
Definitely, if you've put something, there's no point putting something in a blend if it's going to make the blend inferior. You can't really hide, as Jenna said, if you've got we're not dealing with the types of size of blends that you'll see the big multinationals or the big giant ones. It's the relatively very small. So putting a cask or two that isn't that good, it won't work.
You'll notice and you'll pull us up on it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we would we would notice ourselves, and you can't. It's. You
want to be confident with what you're putting out and releasing to customers as well. So if you can't turn around and say, yeah, I enjoy that.
Well, it's taken nearly 180 years for the company to get its reputation. It doesn't take long for it to lose it. So you want to make sure that you're keeping up the constant quality and the consistency for it. And that is something that we do try and strive for. And we wouldn't pass it on to anybody else either, because if we don't believe it's good enough, it would be unfair to then try and make money on something that's not of good quality.
It's one of the opportunities that we have here as well, that we're not in any hurry, and we've got a vast amount of casks to make our way through. And if it's not ready, it's not ready. But back to this Tomatin, just because I've just had a sip of it and it's a proper enjoyable dram. This one's good for this time of year, I would say as well. I can just imagine
Well, it shouldn't be. It's because it's a bit colder than it normally is.
Probably that's probably what it is. But yeah, I can imagine just at night sipping away at this one. You don't need too much of it either. But yeah, that's a proper good dram.
It's pretty rich, that one. We've got a question here asking if when we know we'll be doing our warehouse tours again. We've just got to kind of follow government guidelines just now. We've got to make sure the place is safe, not just for visitors, for staff. Also to try and do a warehouse tasting in a safe manner too. It's gone with the days where we'll be taking a full inch out and actually,
that's it, yeah. We could possibly have lost that, but we don't know yet. But
we don't know. You might to get a bike pump or something. That might be
But yeah, there's no sharing the lunches or letting others draw the whiskey and pouring them into drams now. But yeah, there's a lot of work to be done before we introduce Cadenhead warehouse tastings again.
We are working on ideas, and we've got to wait. We've got to follow government guidelines, as I said, and just make sure everything's safe. But we will let you know as soon as possible when that is.
Also, Scotland is still at a stage that we're just beginning to open up really, and it's been nice. We've got visitors in Campbeltown, and you're allowed to travel around, but the shops are now open, but only from the last couple of weeks, I think. So, we're going to be patient and stick with the rules and make sure everything's in place. So we're not in any immediate hurry, I would say.
Just as long as everybody's safe, that's the main thing. So we'll move on to dram number 5. And this is one not from Scotland, this is actually from Sweden. And it's from the High Coast Distillery, which was formerly known as Box when it was founded in 2010. This is 7 years old. And again, there's a slight explanation to this. It was a single cask, but it was, 92.5% of this was unpeated spirit.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a lie. It was 9.5% of this was peated spirit. Mm-hmm. And the other 91.5 was unpeated. Now the guys at High Coast claim that this would be around 4 to 6 ppm, because it was 46 ppm of the peated whiskey, if you're following me here, and then the unpeated was obviously added too. Now it was in New American oak as well, which you can probably tell by the colour, especially for a 7-year-old. It looks pretty much like what you would always see with a bourbon. Excuse me. Now, this one is high in strength. This one is 61.8%. And it has got what you expect with new oak as well. That really kind of sort of sweet, kind of vanillas, it's got a lot of kind of woodiness to it.
For that small proportion of peat as well, I think you can really notice it coming through really at the end, but there is a touch on the nose as well. That's fairly small percentage, but yeah, it definitely makes a difference in there.
It does, and it's just got a little kind of sort of hint in the background. Really toffee in the background too, coconut as well. This one again, it's probably going to maybe divide some people. Mm-hmm. It has got that kind of real, almost kind of bourbon quality to it. But I really like this. It's really sweet. That little bit of peat kind of helps too. I think a little drop of water in this really kind of helps open it up. It's quite a fresh kind of spirit. So I've tried other spirits from this distillery too, and it's really, really good. Really kind of light.
I believe
fruity kind of spirit too.
This is the second High Coast that Cadenheads have released. The first one would have been about last year, and it was a peated version at 48 ppm.
Yeah, it's something like that. 40, 46, 48, I think it was.
So they're around about, which was really popular as well once we got out. So I think we were out and about tasting it at the time. But yeah, it seems to be a sort of good and well-known distillery, and as Cadenheads have got part of their portfolio, a World Whiskies range, and Sweden has now been added to that. So we're always on the lookout for whiskies around the world as well. So we've done ones from the first one I'll not bother, Japan. Well, we have done Irish ones as well. We've
done Irish ones in the past,
we've done ones from
Japan, Sweden, India.
Yeah.
Australia,
yeah, that's all of them are on the tip of my tongue there. I just couldn't remember. Mind blank there as I went to say it, but we get there in the end. But yeah, and it's interesting to see what others do with their version of malt whiskey. But this one as well, I think the colour really surprised me when I first saw it in the bottle as well. Not that colour is everything, but it shows you the difference that the new American oak has made on it, and the sort of flavours that it's influenced into the whiskey as well.
We've got a comment here from Sasha that says, "I love the amount of peat. It satisfies my peat lover's heart, but would also make a good entry to the world of peated whiskey," which is probably a good comment.
Yeah, that's spot on.
Yeah, because if somebody who's maybe trying to get into peat, if you stick them straight into something at 60 ppm, it might put them right off. But something that gradually builds up, you do obviously get certain distilleries with low levels of peat. Can't think of one off the top of my head. So there are ones as well which can help sort of maybe build that state. Although some people just maybe don't like peat, it's that's the thing about whiskey. There is you don't have to like everything, but it's a good show.
But as part of tastings like this, it gives you the opportunity to try it without having to buy a full bottle as well. So you're not completely losing out, and then you might come across something like this that if you're not a fan of big heavy peat, that you would give this a go as well, especially being Swedish as well. It's probably not at the top of your list of whiskies to try. Again, it goes kind of back to that sort of blended malt, single malt. It's the Scotch sort of thing as well. But yeah, there's some good world whiskies. Another one's English. There's that just reminded me of that. There's
English whiskey as well. Forgot about that.
English whiskey, and which is fairly good. Really good. Yeah. But yeah, we've got loads, and of course we'll tend to sample these ones before we purchase them as well.
I think that's a good point actually, Jenna, that when we are purchasing casks, the vast majority of casks we purchase, we're buying in bulk. We're not pre-tasting. So some bottlers might be pretty much buying to sell instantly, which it's fine. It's a different sort of model we've got though, where we're buying bigger volumes. It'd be impossible to taste as many casks as that. I mean, this week alone, I think we just purchased about 75 casks.
Which Cameron's tried and tasted.
Might look like I have, but unfortunately I've not. But it means that when we get the casks here, we've got to try and taste them then. But when we are doing maybe ones like new distilleries, distillers we haven't got, or likes of High Coast, we'll get in touch with them and they'll offer us some samples, and we get to sort of try ones there. So this is ones that we have pre-picked, and we actually purchased this one at the same time as we did the peated one last year as well. So we bought them both at the same time. Save some DHL parcels. I get the sample. But some good comments on this one. I was slightly worried with this one because I really like it. Sometimes you don't know how it's going to take though, because it has that sweetness. But there seems to be some really good kind comments here. A lot of coconut definitely there. But again, this one is a little bit of it's good to do in these tastings because it's maybe something that you wouldn't normally try. Likes of the ones we've had before, of Tomatin, Inchmurrin, blends. A lot of people would have tried those kind of whiskies, but a 7-year-old box distillery in New Oak, it's maybe something that you might not go out.
There's possibly something else on the shelf that will grab your attention rather than that one, and you would, without tasting it, you might go towards that because you're a bit unsure. So again, tastings like this is the perfect.
It's perfect. It is. It's really good, and it's a shame that I actually have it in the warehouse too. It'd be really good to have everybody in here for this one. But preference for me as well. A couple of drops of water in this one, I think, just really helps. It just really opens it up even more.
What I love about a warehouse tasting, if we ever do have a wild whiskey in there, I tend not to. Although a lot of the time when I'm doing a warehouse tasting, which is probably really frustrating for anyone that comes, is I don't tell anyone what it is before they taste it. But it works really well for when you're doing a wild whiskey. So ask what kind of age, what style do you think it is? Just the flavour profile. You're never right. You can be wrong if you guess the wrong distillery or whatever. But it's just a bit of fun, and some of the suggestions that come away, and then when you tell them it's a Swedish whiskey, for example, everyone's normally really surprised. So it kind of
apart from the Swedes know they've got good whiskey.
Yeah, but yeah, normally everyone's automatic that they go to. It's definitely Scotch whiskey, and it's this and it's that. So they've got the production right. They're doing the right things because it's tasting what it's supposed to taste.
They've definitely been doing a lot of good stuff. Even tried a few of their own bottlings too. Really, really good stuff. Just when you're saying that, we toyed about maybe doing this as a blind tasting, and we could look at the comments, and if you didn't like it, we would say, it's a roseback, so that everybody would buy it in the end. But
that did happen. Well, no, it didn't happen. We done the blind tasting one day, and nobody liked the Little Mill, but we're absolutely gutted when we didn't want to, when we weren't going to bottle it.
Yep, I think it was 4th or 5th favourite.
Yeah.
Yep.
Just goes to show the name isn't everything. It's all about the taste. So you've got to trust us somewhere along the line.
Yeah, a lot of people. It's been again surprised. A Nougat Bomb from Zander. Is it Scottish peat or Swedish peat from Whisky Wings?
I'm not sure actually.
No idea. Unfortunately, I don't actually know.
It's something I normally look up and have not so far.
It's one of these things I'm pretty sure probably learned maybe about a year ago when we were actually bottling it, and I've completely forgotten. Or I've made that up that we did learn it. I can't remember.
We're not going to make it up. Because
no, I genuinely don't know. Sorry. Yep. Excellent. No, that's pretty good. I'm pretty happy with that.
We've got any more questions as well? Make sure to fire them in. Cameron's keeping an eye on.
I'm just ignoring all the hard ones. That's the.
We don't like too much work. Give us a break.
Yeah, Dave got sweet and tamed by salt, and finally a slight bit of peat smoke. I think that's pretty much spot on with that one.
It's probably a good place to mention. A lot of you may or may not have noticed already, if you can see them, but the bottles are all here and available for you to see, but each of them have a different coloured label. And there's no real method behind the madness for this. Yes, the Irish has been green because it's from Ireland. And we've got the blended malt and the Tomatin as red. We've got the High Coast as yellow.
That's actually pink.
Oh, is that pink? That one. Sorry, it's just the shade in here. And we've got the Kalila and Loch Lomond is purple.
No, that's blue and that's purple.
Is it
Colourblind here. They're all different colours.
Can you see them?
Yep.
Oh yeah, no, I can see them when you look head on. I should have properly checked it before. But yeah, the method behind the madness really is for when we come to the end of the tasting, anyone who wishes to gets the opportunity to place the orders for any bottles, and it will be, again, it's us that will be in the dispatch warehouse picking the bottles and sending them all out to you. So this is really just to help us identify which bottle it is to get the correct bottle to you.
So there's no real excuse when we get it wrong.
Yeah, you feel free to give us it. We don't. That's not our everyday job, so it's to try and help us along the way. So it's to try and identify that we can pick up the correct colour rather than having to read each label when we've got an order of 6 different bottles or whatever. Well, that is just picking up every one, but
so basically, so when I send you the wrong bottle, Jenna can give me a legitimate row. And it makes a nice looking lineup as well when you've got all the bottles together as well. But yeah, there's no real method. So we thought when these bottles start making it out around the world, people may ask why the colours are on the labels. Normally they are plain and simple, but yeah, the colours are just to identify the bottles. Of course, with COVID and everything, we've got the social distancing within the dispatch area and reduced numbers of staff. So we'll get your bottles to you as quickly as possible, and we'll try our best to do as good a job as we can, like we always do. Please bear with us. And well, we've got a plan in place. We just need to make sure it works. Excellent. Well, we move on to the last one of the evening.
Yep, we will.
Excellent. We've got one there from Glenys. Can you tell us a joke? Well, Glenys.
Cameron is good at jokes.
2 fish in a tank. One turns to the other. Do you know how to drive this thing? We nearly finished yet.
I'll not even try and tell a joke because I'm probably...
Even Nathan's laughing, and it takes a lot to make him laugh. He's not really laughing at all.
I can't tell a joke, to be honest.
Neither can I, but the evidence there.
You might get a giggle somewhere, but is it that bad that we need to resort to jokes now?
It must be. I think it's got to that stage already. It's only Tuesday as well.
It's only Tuesday, and it's only 8:30.
We've still got Thursday as well.
Yeah, that's a good point. We're back on Thursday.
Yeah, we're back on Thursday with the recent release tasting. So myself, Jenna, and Ranald Watson will be in the tasting room. So at least we'll get a seat.
Yeah. I've quite enjoyed.
It's actually quite nice, especially my back.
So we'll move on to dram number 6, and we've got a nice. Doesn't need very much explaining either. We've got a nice Kalila. It's 15 years old at 54.6%. So from Isla, where my dad is at the moment. My dad's over working in Isla. I've not been to Isla to visit distilleries yet, and I keep meaning to make it over. But yeah, Kalila, I believe, is in Port Ascaig. And yeah, well-known distillery. It doesn't need much of an introduction, I would say.
It's quite a lot of production done at Kalila as well.
Yeah.
The thing about it that we've always talked about over the years is Kalila is one of the most. It's one of the most really. What's the word I'm looking for here? It's always pretty good. It's
you can rely on it.
It is. It's a very reliable dram. We've had a lot of Kalilas over the years where we've had older ones, younger ones, and the quality's always been really good. It's maybe not when you go to Isla, it's always people think of Ardbeg, Lafroig, Lagavulin, Kilchoman, etc. But Kalila is quite a big industrial kind of factory looking place. About 7 million litres a year gets made there, but the quality's outstanding. It's always there, and this at 15 years old too. It actually tastes a bit like an older dram as well.
I would say it's got that older style to it, especially on the palate, the kind of smokiness. It's not overpowering, it's not heavy, but it's got a lot of flavour in there as well. It's not too peaty, it's not too smoky. Again, I think for the people that's not like peat or smoke fans, they could probably taste it and it'll not like destroy your throat or your tongue, your mouth. You might not like it because it's a bit heavier than obviously the last one, but I don't believe this is a sort of in your face.
No. I think that the sort of older style it's got is, as you said, it's not overly peated. Mm-hmm. Sometimes with peated whiskies, the older it gets, it is going to get a bit more mellow. The peat smoke starts to disappear slightly, but it has got that, but with still a lot of flavour, a lot of body, a nice finish too. It's
got a touch of sort of oiliness going over the tongue as well. I like the sort of texture you get in a lot of whiskies as well. A sort of waxy, oily texture on your tongue is always you can tell it's had a lot from the cask as well. But yeah, this one's good with lots of notes. There's a hint of vanilla in there.
It's got that kind of the sort of classic kind of, lobster Creole.
I was
like
trying
brine.
to avoid,
yeah, no,
saying it.
Actually, I tried to avoid using the word consistent, and actually Drams pointed that out. Although I took a mind blank to think of another word to use, but it's hard to get away from some of those. But it's got a nice creaminess to it as well. Mm-hmm. That kind of saltiness. It's
the finish in this one's not as long as you would normally imagine. I think normally when you've got a sort of smoky and peaty dram, it goes on, and you get different flavours coming throughout, and it'll change as well with each taste. But this one's just probably consistent. If we go back to that word again, but yeah, I'm a massive fan of peaty whiskies as well. So that's where I started. So I'll always go to. Or you always finish on a peaty and a smoky dram anyway, but
yeah.
They can be reliable, and if you like them, anyway. If you don't like them, then stay away because you're not going to, unless you build yourself up to it, you're not going to love it overnight. But yeah,
that's excellent. I think it's a cracking whiskey, that one. Have we got any kind of favourites? I know you don't like to point ones out of the six, but has anybody maybe got like their even their top three or their top six if they want to put it on?
I think
this one might. I think there might be a slight difference with this one.
I think we'll have a lot of different variations.
Yeah, I think so.
For me, I think the blended malt stands out quite highly, and the Tomatin and probably the Caol.
I'm the Inchmurrin. I think Inchmurrin's tremendous. Yeah. Inchmurrin, the vatted malt, and probably the high coast of the Caol for me.
Yeah. I
think that's I think they're all upstanding drams, but it's what we've tried to do is something a bit different, a bit of a variant. We've had different cask finishes from different countries, different spirits.
And we thought about that before we put the tasting together.
Yeah, exactly. We knew that was going to happen. Whiskies from different countries as well, from peated whiskies. It's trying to give a variance. And it's to try and give a showcase of what we've got in stock in our warehouses.
It's really just what Cadenheads have got available and what we can do as well. And it's a really, really good lineup to get all that in there. And it flowed really well as well. I hope you all agree with that as well.
I think so. Jim Davis, 6. How are we doing, Jim? 6 good different drams were selected. Thank you very much. Mark says Caol, Tomatin, Irish. What I'm going 3. What was 3 again? That was the blend's doing pretty well.
The blended malt, yeah, it is a standout dram, I'd say. But each has their own sort of uniqueness behind each of the drams that we've tasted tonight. So I think that's why we'll get such a variation of people's favourites tonight.
A couple, Morton and Niall, sorry, I've got 6, 4 and 1. So that was the Caol, Tomatin, and the Irish. Again, that's pretty much the whole spectrum there. You've got the peaty to the sherry to the light kind of lightly fruity kind of Irish spirit style. Excellent. No, that's brilliant. Now I think, as Jenna's pointed out, this is the point that's going to be like we've got time to get Nathan and Jenna into position to start work again. And at 9:30, the bottles will be available for sale. and I'll let Jenna explain exactly what happens then.
Yeah, so we'll just go over it again, but I will ask Cameron, have you got the prices handy?
Yes, just what ones you mean?
Well, whilst I explain it,
I'll give if you tell me, I'll give you the price.
Yeah, because I didn't write them down. The bottles will all be you if you bought a warehouse tasting pack, you have access to the exclusiveness of buying the bottles at 9:30. You should have already received the link to the product page. Okay, so you would have received that to the email address in which you purchased the warehouse tasting pack. If you purchased a warehouse tasting pack for a friend, you should share this information with them as well, or friends get in touch with the people that you got your warehouse tasting pack with. So Nathan will keep me correct as well, so if I say anything wrong. So far so good. If you bought 2 tasting packs, you'll have a limit of 2 bottles for each product. If you bought 1, you'll have 1 per product. So that means if you bought two warehouse tasting packs and you gave 1 to a friend, if they buy on your I'll start again. If they buy, you should share your email address because you should share your email address. This is a disaster.
We'll start again. The link, if you did get it today, the email, the link that's on that email, if you forward that to anybody that you've shared your packs with, that means that they can go onto the link
and purchase their bottles.
Yeah, but when they purchase it, they need to use your email address.
But if you bought a warehouse tasting pack, the link would have went to the email address that you purchased it. So everything should be fine in that sense, and you'll not get confused on what email address you used. So wherever you received the link is the email address you should use. However many warehouse tasting packs you purchased is however many bottles you are allowed for each product. So that's simple enough. There, we got there in the end.
Clear as mud. There we go.
We got there. Ignore everything beforehand. The bottles will go on sale at 9:30. You've got access to the link to the product page just now. The products are not available or will be shown on the page at the moment. Please wait until 9:30 until they are all on show. You cannot combine orders, so please make sure your full order is in.
You got full T's and C's here.
Yeah, just to be sure, because we get a lot of combined orders, which is something we'll work on for the future. But you've got time. Everyone's ready and available. 9:30. You've got time, so just make sure you put everything in one, unless you want to pay postage and packaging for several different orders. But I think that's about it.
I think that's it. As I said, it'll be going on sale at 9:30 via the link, but that's pretty much the tasting tonight. We'll let you guys...
Just the pricing as well.
Oh, the pricing.
Yeah, so we've got the Irish, first of all.
It is £75.
£75. We've got the Inchmurrin,
which is £115.
The Cadenhead Anomaly.
That's £75.
The Tomatin
is £55.
High Coast.
£60.
And the Caol
is £100.
So hopefully you all wrote that down quickly.
It should be on your email as well.
Yeah, it's on the emails as well, and it'll be on the product page. As I say, there's no immediate hurry. It's exclusive to the people that bought the warehouse tasting packs, and anything that remains will go on sale to the general public on cadenhead.shop from 10 o'clock on Thursday, the 13th of May.
Well remembered. Excellent. Just to say a big thank you first to Jenna and Nathan and everybody who got everything organised for this too. And thank you to everybody who's taken part in the tasting tonight, who bought packs, all 3 of you who watched us.
Or stay tuned.
Or stay tuned anyway. But it's a pleasure, and hopefully, we will be able to get you back here in a physical way. Oh, that came out wrong. We can get you back here in Campbeltown in the near future as well, because it is great to have these tastings, but it's just not the same without with actually you guys in Campbeltown. Yeah. So I think that's that then.
Yeah, no,
just to say, well, we're here on Thursday night. I'm not sure if any of you got a pack for Thursday night's tasting, but if you do, we'll see you on Thursday. So, Slange.